Hello, and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guild House. This is a weekly podcast where I, Matthew Whitby, sit down with people all across the DMsGuild and tabletop RPG space. And again, we're breaking new ground this week, as I am privileged to be joined by Adam Dewees.
Hello, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. By the way, is it okay? Do you usually go by Matt or Matthew?
Oh, see, you know what? I think there was a meme on Twitter going around, wasn't it? Of like, the tier list of like, I'll be honest, as long as people talk to me, I'm happy. So Matthew, it's all good. But no, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join. And obviously, I kind of like, I guess, getting it kind of straight out of the way. Like for people listening, where might they know you from?
I think the place that they would probably recognize me from most often would probably be our podcast, One-Shot Onslaught. And that is mostly because we play through one-shot adventures from DMsGuild from there. So a lot of times we interact with a lot of different DMsGuild authors, which I imagine you have a pretty big following of DMsGuild authors for your show and your podcast. So that would probably be the first place they would recognize me from.
Yeah, I would argue probably almost exclusively. I think with a name like the DMsGuild House, I think it's a niche audience from the get-go. But no, I guess like my kind of like first question out the gate is like, so kind of, well, I guess also as well, you have now also published on the DMsGuild.
I did finally after I think it was I think One-Shot Onslaught's been going on for about 2.5 years now. So after about 2.5 years, I finally got down to work and got my first adventure published. And it's called The Tournament of Tokens. It's actually the first arc of my first and only ever homebrew campaign, which is another show we do, Halfway to Heroes. So since I already had it kind of written out and ran it for the podcast, it wasn't a lot of writing, like additional writing or work to make the idea come together. Mm-hmm. But even so, even with that idea, the whole thing planned and ran before, it's a lot of work making an adventure, man. It really is. And it took me a long time to get that just down on paper. So all you authors out there that are putting out, multiple works a year, good job. I don't know how you do it.
In fairness, like I guess like that is kind of like a trend of like going through the sort of like just taking sort of playtesting notes. And so I take it from the sound of things, it's like, are you quite like a heavy prepper? I imagine like hosting a podcast, you kind of have to be a little bit.
So I used to prep a lot more, I think. Mm-hmm. And now, especially so on our show, we also have a Twitch stream. And when we do the Twitch streams, I tend to be a little bit more loose with them because we don't really adhere to as like strict of timelines. We can't really record the podcast for 5 hours straight. Because that would be a lot of editing on my part after the fact. But for a stream that we're just playing, having fun, hanging out, and then getting it out there, it's a lot more fluid when we do the streams. So for the streams, I always will try to at least read through an adventure. And the streams, that's pretty much all I do. I will read through it start to finish, and that will be the extent of it. The podcast, I try to at least also take notes while I'm reading it. Mm-hmm. And then that way, by the end of it, I'll usually have like half a page to a page in a Google Doc of notes. So not a ton of notes, but at least some. And then if I'm running like Halfway to Heroes, which is homebrew, and I'm still consider myself very new to running homebrew, that is, like you mentioned, it's kind of hard to prep for homebrew, I find, because I don't have something I can just read that tells me what to do.
Yeah.
So I think I'm still learning on that, to be honest.
Interesting. And so, okay, so I guess, so if you've been running, was it One-Shot Onslaught for about, 2 years now? How many one-shots do you think you've run through?
So there's a lot that aren't on the podcast feed. A lot of them. So we used to make YouTube videos, and like the sound quality was just horrendous, so we couldn't even put them up on the feed. So even so, we've got 72 episodes out. We generally split them in half, so that should be about 35 episodes. We've got a handful that are like one-off episodes, like where we have one-on-one episodes with all the characters, like do like a little one-shot I made where we introduce that character. So all in all, I think on the podcast we probably have about 20 one-shots up there, and then before the podcast there was probably about 10, and then streams are where for a long time we run our patrons through the streams. So it's just me and some of our patrons, and we play one shots on Twitch. And on those, we were doing like 2 to 3 a month for a little bit. So I would think that there's probably a good 30 on Twitch as well. So we're probably looking at like 60 to 70 range. It's probably getting up there.
Well, it's like, yeah, I'll be honest. Like, yeah, the like it's you always like. I guess my interpretation of like one shots, like a standard sort of D&D table, is the occasional sort of like like you have something planned, and then you have like essentially the beach episode or the where you come in and do the one. But yeah, to run through like 60 or 70, I think again, this is why I'm happy to have you, because I think you may be the most qualified to talk about what goes into like a good one shot.
Yeah, I've I've heard that there's a couple other shows that are like, hey, we're doing an episode on one shots. Would you like to be our interviewee for this topic? Yeah, it all started because, like I mentioned, I have never done any other homebrew. Halfway to Hero started like a year ago, and I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 2017, so still pretty new to it. And when we started, I had no idea how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Started listening to podcasts. Decided, you know what, I think we could do this. But nobody else. I started a game with one of my brothers, my wife, his wife, and our cousin, and none of them would have been the DM, so I had to be the DM. So I was trying to learn through podcasts how to play. And then I found the starter edition, the starter set. We actually had that. My brother that I started playing with got it for Christmas one year, and we were really into board games and tabletop gaming at that point. We opened it up, and it was just like sheets of paper and a book. We were like, how do you play this? There's no board. So we boxed it up for another 6 months and never touched it again. But then I started playing that, and we were having a lot of fun. My oldest brother, we didn't think he would like it because he doesn't even like board games. So we didn't even think to like ask him if he wanted to come and play with us. But those two worked together, and he kept hearing Dustin talk about the show, about us playing. He got really excited, started wanting to play it, but he wasn't able to commit. At the time we were playing like 3 days a week at that campaign. Like we were hooked. We were into it. And we all lived close by, so it was easy to get together. But he couldn't commit to that. So I was like, I'll look up how to like play a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, because I had no idea. And searching around, I think that's how I found the DMsGuild. And then I was just floored. I was like, oh, look, it's a ton of one night Dungeons and Dragons adventures, one shots. And that is how I found the show. We ran through one shot with just both my brothers, my cousin, and one of my oldest brother's friends came. And then we were like, hey, let's just do this once a month, and I can just find another one shot from this. And you guys just keep using these characters, and just every month we'll get together and play a one shot. Because we weren't playing enough to do a campaign really, which now I realize you can play a campaign once a month. A lot of people do that actually. But at the time we didn't really, know that it would really flow like that. And then after like 4 or 5 one shots, we realized, we were like, we should record these so we can like watch back, and like our wives could watch, because we were like laughing the entire time. We were having so much fun. So we started just recording them with just like a GoPro, no microphones or anything. and then started putting them up on YouTube because it was like the easiest way just for us to like show like our wives and stuff. And then after that, we just we had like an Instagram just to take pictures throughout the night, and then we would like do live videos, and then for some reason we started a Patreon, and we had a goal like, hey, if this hits like $15 a month, we'll pay for a podcast hosting fee. And it did during a live video. So then that's how we started the podcast, and then from there it's just we realized we're like, oh, we need like microphones now. We sound very bad without microphones.
I was gonna say, it sounds like yeah, you were going pretty much through all the steps of like setting up your social media profile before you even realized you were going to be starting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very backwards how we did things. We did not think anything was going to come of it at all. And now we've got like a podcast network, and we've got like 5 shows on that network. Yeah. It has grown way bigger than we ever imagined it would be. And it's all because of DMsGuild. Without DMsGuild, we would not have anything. So that's why I really try to just, as much as I can, plug as much DMsGuild stuff as I can at all times.
So I guess I would say also as well, at the timing of this recording and stuff, I think, was it you also were featured on the official Wizards D&D stream?
Yeah, and that was wild. It was seriously the last like 40 days, because in August I was in an interview for Dragon Plus magazine about DMsGuild and about one-shots, and I thought that was wild. And then like a week after it came out, we got invited to be on this Wizards of the Coast Rime of the Frost Maiden podcast of the Frost Maiden. And at the time, I was trying to, so if you don't know about the event, they do these for generally all the big books that they're releasing. A couple podcasts come together and they all record like a one-shot set in the new book. So I was originally trying to plan something myself. Again, I'm not as creative as a lot of the DMsGuild authors out there. So I reached out to Steve Pankotai, who had a fantastic adventure that was actually in the level range for my group also. And it was set in Tourmaline in the 10 towns in Icewind Dale. And I was like, hey, do you care if I run this for the event? So I stuck true to the roots, and instead of trying to make up something myself, used somebody who made a way better adventure than I could ever come up with. Yeah. And then that way I also got to talk about DMsGuild on that feed as I, plugged that adventure that we did for that. And it's the guys are getting up there now. They're level 14, so there's not a ton of that high level stuff. Yeah. So I was really surprised to find an adventure in Icewind Dale also in their levels, and me not have to just like quadruple everything's damage and try to scale it the best I can.
I suppose when it comes to that side of things, of like trying to keep like a consistent party, I suppose the sort of balancing encounters, obviously, because like was it one-shots, they do have like the intended level range. Just timesing everything by 10 seems like a good rule of thumb.
Sometimes I'll find one I'll find an adventure I really, really like, and our plan is once they hit level 20, they're gonna make new characters at level 1, so I can go back through, and I'll add a bunch to my list of adventures I want to run when we do that reset. Yeah. But sometimes I'll find one that I'm just so in love with. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I'll try to scale the best I can and make it hard enough for them. But it gets slim pickings when you get up there.
I think there's a lot of like level 20 play. Like I know there's at least a few, just because like those are the cool like concept of like, oh, let's do a one shot, let's just have. But yeah, I imagine that 15, 16 to 17 is like
exactly. Because I think if somebody starts to plan for like a level 17 adventure, like you said, I think it being a level 20 adventure is kind of a selling point. Because there's not a lot. So I think instead of people making a level 17 adventure, they're like, I'll just make a level 20 adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay, well then I guess, so in you kind of mentioned like you have like your list of like, okay, well when we start, like I guess like one of the important things is when you're looking at adventures, like what exactly, like what do you look for in a one shot? Like how do you know one that is just like jumps out at you?
So the big cliche, never judge a book by cover. I always look at covers. I really do. A good cover will always get to my catch my eye. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a ton of amazing content out there that has like either like a blank cover or like just like a generic cover maybe.
Mhm.
But that is one thing that I see if I see in like the new releases or the top most popular releases. I'll always check those out. So my general process is to go to DMsGuild, sort by adventures, and then enter in my level ranges that I'm currently looking for. If it's for the podcast, that's when I'm restricted. If it's for a Twitch stream with patrons, it's everything's on the table. And then I'll just say, all right, everybody roll up a level 4 or, whatever level we find. I tend to not do higher level adventures for the Twitch streams though, because like I said, there's not a ton out there. So I need to use those for the podcast.
Yeah.
I try to find ones that say, the hour range I try to run is I always try to get it in 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I like ones that say 2 to 4 hours. Sometimes when they say like 3 to 6 hours, I'll go ahead and buy it and I'll just read through it and I'll think like, can I realistically get this down to the 3 hour window? Early on, I wasn't very good at doing that at all. One example is I tried to run Expeditions to the Lost Peak by MT Black in 1 3 hour session, and that says 68 hours. I was like, I can get it. Oh, man. I think by the end of it, that thing didn't make any sense. That was before the podcast. That was just on the YouTube.
Yeah.
But I had to chop out so much stuff that I think it just didn't make sense. So I try to look for ones that say like 2 to 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And our combat's usually pretty fast. So I think that accounts for a lot of, if it says like to 6 hours, I think that's when people actually sit down and do combat by the book, rules as written. We tried to make combat last only like 2 rounds maximum, one way or another. So if it's cover catches my eye, the time window looks good. I will generally right there just buy it, just because. And then I'll start reading through it, and I try to find ones that aren't just. I try to find ones that have like something unique about them, something that makes them stand out. One good example is the Pudding Fair. Pudding Fair is a like Groundhog's Day type one shot, where once it hits like nighttime or something, the guys wake up and it's the next day again.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's one of my favorite adventures I've ever ran. And so if it's got something unique like that, I will almost certainly run it if all the other conditions are kind of lined up. And then other than that, there's a couple authors I've got that I know, like if I see their work, I'm like, I know that's going to be something really good. I try to run a bunch of different authors though. I do have like some parts that are like back-to-back Jesse Stevens adventures I ran, and I'll be like, all right, Jeff, this adventure is fantastic. I really need to run somebody else's work now though. So like stuff like that, and sometimes if it is an author that I've never ran before, if it's something is kind of outside of that criteria, like it does sound like it's going to be a little long, I'll try extra hard to make it work. I know the RPG Writer Workshop just ended. I guess 2 months ago now. Time's flying. When that one ended, I was looking specifically through just those adventures, because I really thought, hey, this would be really cool to run somebody's first ever published adventure on the show. And that one we ended up running A Vital Vintage by Kaylee Bradley. I hope I got that right. And what was cool about that episode is because it's one shots, we were able to do all guest for that.
Yeah.
So it was me running it for Tim Lanning from Geekly Inc. and then Kat Kruger from D20 Dames. We had Brian from You Meet at Tavern and Brian from Encounter Party.
Wow.
So I thought this would be so cool. Like if I was a DMsGuild author and I made my first ever adventure, and then I got to hear these, bigger names than myself run these adventures.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, there's a lot of factors, and I'm giving a long rambling answer.
So because I think what you're like trying to get at is so obviously you're the way you search for adventures, you are searching for like I guess like a niche intention. Like obviously you can't just think of like just what you're running for your table. You're thinking about, okay, well this has to work for a stream, and that kind of puts like a number of factors of what is and isn't feasible. And especially because I think when people think about a D&D session, it is that 3 hour mark typically. I think like either that or you have like those sort of like whole weekend like weekday like vendors. But and I think I can sort of see that any sort of adventure that I typically have that kind of extends beyond like 3 hours typically falls into like a two-parter. With like a sort of like a strong two clearly defined different sections. But no, I think as well. I think in some of these sort of like other people I've spoken to on things, there is that case of a cover does a lot of the work. Again, it's tough because especially for new authors, it's quite hard to.
It's expensive.
Yeah, but it can carry a product and stuff like that. There's something so eye catching about there's a few good sort of covers out there with clowns on them, or like
Jesse Stevens.
There you go. Yeah,
really good. He gets really good covers. You know what? I feel bad because I ran so much of his work, and I don't even know who does the majority of his cover art, but it's very good cover art. Yeah. I just pulled up DMsGuild. This is another thing. I do try to look at the most popular DMsGuild adventures just because. That is kind of selfish on our part because we're thinking like if we're running the shiny new things on DMsGuild, it will get more eyes on us. So we don't always do that. Like I said, we do also try to run like newer authors and things, but I just pulled it up and Eyes Unclouded. That is a fantastic cover right there.
Yeah. Studio Ghibli.
Yeah. Very good theme. Very good cover. Yeah. There's and if you look at the top 10 most popular right now, they are all very good covers. So
I guess a question is, so how do you look much at like an adventure anthologies much?
I do. So it's kind of it's one of those things where I buy so many of those anthologies, and then a lot of the times I'll flip through them, and sometimes it just it's hard to find. Like sometimes I'll look at those and they'll be bundled together and they'll be even a little too short. They'll be, like 1 hour or 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a case. So I can think of off the top of my head 2 cases we've actually ran on the podcast. And that is from Grim Encounters. JVC Perry spearheads those. And both of those, funny enough, my oldest brother Sean ran both of those because they were smaller, right? And they were both on nights where we sat down to record, and for one reason or another, we decided, hey, Sean, you have never DM'd before in your life. It would be very funny if you just sat down right now and started trying to DM an adventure from these. And they just so happened to both come from Grim Encounters. And since they were shorter, he was, sitting down. He was actually reading it. He had zero prep. We talked about me at least reading it through. He was along for the ride with us. He had no idea what was going to happen either. But a lot of those I actually do run on stream. I can think of Savage Encounters. I did one where it was something with a Bigfoot by Jean Lorber. And it was from, I think, Savage Encounters in I forget which one, but it was from one of those anthologies.
Mhm.
And Eyes on Cloud had actually another anthology. We were wanting to run one of those on a stream here soon. We actually haven't done a stream in other than Steve Pankotai again from Mind Your Head. He ran his Scooby-Doo adventure for us.
Yeah.
Last month, I think it was, and since then it's been very, very busy. But as soon as we kind of get back into that rhythm of doing them at least once a month or twice a month, I've been eyeing Eyes Unclouded to run an adventure from there. And I like anthologies because they've got usually, levels 1 to 15. I don't know if I've seen any that go up to 20 again.
I think it kind of was it. There was the I'm forgetting the name of it, but there was the anthology all about the 9 layers of hell.
Something. Is that just no? That's not. Is that Encounters in Avernus?
No, it's I just because you know what this is. We're doing some live googling. But yeah, no, basically, So it was basically one that kind of went through all the. This is gonna be a tough one to find. Just because it's. I don't remember the name, and just typing in hell. Only,
that's gonna be
only.
I'm seeing Encounters in Avernus, but I don't know.
You actually know. I think I know. So I know that Justice Harmon was involved. So I'm going to go with the sort of the reverse engineer of go through one of the authors.
Hellbound
Heists.
What is it?
Hellbound Heists.
Yes. Yeah, I've got that. I've got that purchase actually because one of our members in One-Shot Onslaught is he's a tiefling rogue that in the one-on-one backstories, it was discovered that his whole purpose for being in the guild is just to make enough money to buy this. It's a book that he's needing to open up and to go into one of the 9 layers of hell to do this objective. And I was like, oh, cool. I won't even have to write that now. I can just use it. Yeah. So I've got that ready. Once we get more towards the end, I'm going to be using one of those because that actually does have some high level adventures in that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe it was run by organized by Brian Holmes, and then obviously they had like looking at the team there. Was it so many people. Yeah.
Whoa.
No. Well, fantastic. So, okay, cool. So I guess kind of like my next question then is, so in running 61 shots, I guess the first part is what always stands out in the actual like design, in the crunch or the layout of like a one shot that always is like a good thing.
So there's been one shots that have been just absolutely fantastic adventures that are very hard to prep. And I don't know what the magic ingredient to it is, but I really like, it seems I've seen some that are not railroaded, not like, hey, you're going to go into this dungeon and go room, which those, I do like those because those are very easy to prep. You know exactly what they're going to do. Unless they turn around, just leave, they're going to keep going to the next room. Sometimes sandboxy ones, okay, so Pudding Fair. I feel like I can do this because I mentioned it's one of my favorite adventures ever. So I can say, and this is on no fault of the authors, it's just a very wide open sandbox. There's a lot to do. I almost never ran that adventure because I think it's like 70 pages long. And I was thinking like, that is the most prep I've ever done for a one shot. It's for putting. It really is. It was. I think if I've got the notes still for it. It's probably 3 to 4 pages of notes I had.
I was just trying to think on like a joke of trying to do like a Groundhog Day style adventure. You would have to describe every location. And then I guess have all the information of like, okay, well, if you visit here with this information
at this time of day,
yeah,
if it's after 2:00 in the afternoon, it will be like this. If it's before 2, it was hard to prep. That's on. I mean, it's just the nature of the adventure, right? It's not anything that they did wrong, but me seeing it 70 pages, it did almost turn me away. I almost never ran it, which would have been very unfortunate because I absolutely love that adventure. So I think page count is something that it's not. I think there might be people opposite of me that think they like buying an adventure and seeing a high page count because then maybe they get more of a feeling of value. Like, hey, I spent $5 for this, and it's if they're like going to be equating like page number to value. But for me, a lot of time is I'll buy an adventure and I'll see how many pages. I'll be like, ooh, that's going to take a lot of time to prep that one. But so I think that's neither here nor there. I think that's probably a 50-50 camp. Some that are like me and some that are, in the other party that like the higher page count.
I mean, that's like when it comes to like writing an adventure or like, again, like prepping for a session, there is always that fine line of like, okay, well, how much like information do I put in this adventure to how much do I just leave it up to the DM? Because I could like, again, it's always a case of like, sometimes when it comes to like names, I could be like, oh yeah, there's 5 guards outside. There's, Ted, I could talk about, Ted's 3 children in his bungalow cottage, 2 miles away, and how, Sundays they go, on a picnic. Which again, it may come up, and it's it may be some, but it's always like, okay, where do I draw the line? And that's sometimes how you do end up with these sort of,
I've seen adventures that are almost as down to the nitty gritty as that, where they really do. So I'll look at the page count, like, oh, that's a lot of pages, and I'll start looking up, like, well, it's a lot of fluff stuff, which is good to have. But again, it's kind of that coin toss, do I want to spend more time prepping this, but then have this extra information I can draw on if they happen to ask Ted the guard what he does on Sundays, and you'd be able to just pull that. And then you look like just the best DM ever to your players, and you've got all this backstory about Ted, and they're like, why do you know so much about Ted?
I think for me, so I think especially in murder mystery one-shots, I think those are the ones where you need again, that's that sort of level of detail, because again, you're trying to deduce things for these sort of like I guess Dungeon-esque, railroady ones. Again, you can hand wave a little bit more. I think it kind of, again, I guess that what we're saying is it varies so much.
I don't think there's one right way to do it. I do think other than actual writing of adventures, as far as what makes an adventure like easily readable and stuff, obviously layout, that is one thing that I don't think that one has as polarizing opinions about. I think there's pretty much, hey, this layout, you can look at it and say, this layout looks good. This layout doesn't look good. And for my adventure, I used the 5e Microsoft Word.
Laura Herzbrenner.
Hers, yeah. And even with that, that's the only reason I ever published my adventure, by the way. If I never had that, I would have never published Tournament of Tokens. I would have given up. I would not have been able to do the layout. Even so, it's still very hard to do layout work, and I think that's why there are layout editors. And if I ever did another adventure, I would do that. I would pay for a layout editor, because that was the bane of my existence for like a solid week of trying to get that. And then you put a picture somewhere, and then everything's done. Yeah, it's done. I did not like it.
Yeah, no, I had was it for Bowler's Guide to Getting Murdered.
Yeah,
I had Anne Gregerson handle my layout, and she did again, the first time working with a layout editor blew my mind. Just because in the case of like when you're the one sort of like because I use I guess I don't know what to call it. It's like I don't use it's like a coding based layout. It's like LaTeX. And so it's not the thing where, like with Word, you can occasionally click and drag. It's the case of like you're using it like numbers and like
you have
I want
to type in how many pixels from the
which,
left, and
which it makes it's the worst. But when it works, it works. But one thing I picked up is that I kind of use the Adventure League style, which is when it comes to like obviously in your adventure you have a number of encounters. Where possible, keeping an entire counter per page, or just having all the information on one page. I imagine that makes your life as a DM substantially easier to not have to be flipping.
Yeah, and that was something that before I made my adventure, I had seen both ways. I had seen where so yeah, all the encounter stuff should definitely be fit in one page. That's fantastic. I saw a lot of different one shots that some had NPC blocks on the page or near the page with their encounter, and then I saw a lot that had them at the back of the book, and then I saw some that had both. So that is one thing that you know what, off the top of my head, I don't remember which pattern I went with myself. I think I've got them all at the back of the book. It might be both. I can't even remember now.
I've recently, I've more, because I've been doing a fair bit of like sort of isolated like encounter work. I am leaning more the sort of like inserted stat blocks, just because again, it's that one less thing to worry about for the DM. It's like there are maybe 3 creatures in this encounter, but you're only really possibly going to be fighting one. To just have that there to be like, okay, well, it's all here. It's
it is really nice. I've been doing a lot of solo adventures for Twitch, and that is one thing I really enjoy. When I click the hyperlink, it says I go to page 23 for combat, and I go there, and it's got the since we're playing solo without a DM, you've got to have like the tactics the monster is going to use, and then the stat block right there, and it's got everything on one page. I've seen, I think I've seen at least one where it's got all the encounter tactics and everything, but no stat block on that page. So at that point, especially while I'm streaming, because then I have to like open up another tab, and people can't see that other tab; they can only see the adventure tab. So. Yeah, I see the value of having them all together on that one page.
I guess a lot to that. So, are there any little features that you sometimes see in like I guess one shots, like I guess like random encounter tables, like gossip tables, or like small things like that you always just like really like to see?
Yeah, so every time I've ever seen a gossip table, I've always thought, I really like that. Also, every time I've ever seen a gossip table and I've ran the adventure, I don't think I've ever gotten to that. I don't think I've ever gotten to use one. But every time I see one, I really like it. I like on the West Hollow, the Wranglers of West Hollow. It's not on DMsGuild, it's on Drive-Thru. And it's like a cowboy themed thing. That one's got a lot of really cool stuff where it's got like a chase table.
It's sort of like got chase complications and
and it's got one that's like for wagons, like covered wagons, or like riding up alongside your wagon, and it's got a lot of like complications where if like one person falls off or tries to jump to the other table, because like I said, I feel like I'm not. Especially as a DM, I feel like I'm not like super creative and like good at coming up with like wrenches that come out on the adventure. And that one has a lot like somebody tries to jump onto this other wagon and like, oh no, they maybe dropped their weapon and it went flying into the back of the wagon or stuff like that. And I'm not really good at coming up with stuff like that. So I like those. I do like those tables, and I like those gossip tables. I usually forget to use them. So
I think so to talk about tables as a whole, it's like I've included a fair few gossip tables in the sense that I use them as like the if in an open world adventure, if the party ever lose their way, you could just use the gossip table to just kind of like nudge them on the right way. If they're going saying, we've lost our lead. Just to have like an old lady nearby saying, "Oh, I saw some hooded individual go into the woods the other day. That was weird."
Well, bye now.
Yeah, but, you know how old ladies are, always talking about weird hooded individuals they see walking into the woods. But when it comes to encounters as well, I do love a complications table. So actually, was it funny enough? Earlier today, I was writing an encounter based in fighting in like a potion shop that's on fire.
Oh.
And so the encounter table is that obviously potions, glass vials and stuff like that, when they get heated, sometimes they shatter and explode. So at certain points, some potions explode and have like different effects. Like I think what was it? There was a potion that like there's a D&D potion that turns you into like a water person or like a puddle.
Okay.
And so halfway through a fight, being turned into a puddle for a minute may not be the most useful, but the whole building's on fire, so it kind of like
you gotta wait it out.
Yeah, you're like, I know I can't fight right now, but I'm helping. No, but then okay, well, no, awesome. And then I guess the other side of the spectrum, is there anything that kind of irks you about one shots, like information that's missing, or just like what have you come across that has always been a bit like
So one thing that I think, I don't know if it's something that's in newer adventures that I'm not seeing it as much, but there were a lot of adventures earlier on that I would try to read, and if at the very beginning in like an adventure overview, the author like tries to keep like secrets even from you as the DM so that like you're surprised at the end. I don't really like that. I don't really remember the last time I saw that. Now I'm seeing a lot more right at the rip. I like seeing a synopsis, an adventure background, all of the background information I could ever need. Exactly. I like seeing chapter by chapter, like in this chapter, this is going to be the goal. This is what should happen in this chapter. And then this chapter, I really, really like seeing chapter breakdowns like that. I think I don't know if it's just like the way my mind kind of organizes things, or if it makes me not as overwhelmed if I'm like, oh, okay, so that 5-10 page chapter really is just to get this one thing. So as long as I get that out of it, I'm good. And there were adventures earlier on that there really is it's just like part one, the gang's in a town, and like it just jumps right into it. And then so it's like I have to read along to find, and it also helps me parse through adventures. Like you were saying, what makes an adventure stand out? When I'm buying an adventure to see if I'm going to run it, I will generally run that or read that first page and be like, does this sound fun? Does it sound entertaining? And then if so, I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll read the rest of it. And if not, I'll be like, oh, I don't need this one right now.
Yeah. No, that's I guess like that. So I think sometimes there is that case of like if you're a DM first and you're taking the sort of adventure you've run to try and turn into like a one shot, it like secrets are fun. And it's tough, like the sort of the idea that like but I want it to be a secret for everyone. I want the DM to go
oh yeah, I want him to get to the end and have fun reading it. And I appreciate that. Like I'm sure I would get to the end and read it, be like, oh, what? But I also
the best piece of advice I ever got was it from RP Davis as he was editing one of my ventures. He said, "Don't put a secret in if they can't figure it out." And I was like, that's solid advice. Yeah, and it's the idea of like sometimes in some of my earlier ventures, I was definitely one to sometimes put in unnecessary skill checks. Which you kind of sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, just let them, if this condition is met, automatic success, and then just by the nature of figuring out the secret or discovering it, that's rewarding in itself. Like if by the end of the adventure they haven't figured it out, what's the point of including it? Essentially.
Yeah.
No, fair. No, it's interesting. I guess like I was gonna like ask as well, like have there been any adventures that have kind of lended themselves to streaming more than others?
I'm trying to think of if I can think off the top of my head my favorite streamed adventure we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of them. One that this is again. I will get. I'll get back to that question.
Yeah.
This did remind me. There was one that I ran for an Extra Life charity event, which was like a 24-hour thing. So I actually had a tight window where I couldn't keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And the adventure I ran was the last march of the Tyrant Worm, I think it's called. And that adventure is so good. I wanted to run it so bad. Unfortunately, it's another one of those like 6 to 8 hour adventures. Jean Lorber worked with me, and he gave me like this little graph, like an actual, you can skip these parts, do these parts. He actually like put in work to help me try to get that. Even so, I failed to. I should have not done it on one that had an event directly behind it, because towards the end we had to rush a little bit. So that's not to say that one was bad for stream. It was because I timed it bad. As for events or one shots that are really good to be streamed, I've got to say the Scooby-Doo one shot, or one shots that have like pre-made characters like that had all the Scooby-Doo characters pre-made. Yeah. I think that's really good and really fun, because then people can they don't have to worry about making their character. They've got these pre-made characters. They can jump right in, and right away on that stream, we didn't have to describe our characters or anything, right?
Yeah.
We played Scooby-Doo characters. Everybody knew who Scooby-Doo characters were, so we didn't have to spend 20 minutes describing our characters. Another one shot that I think worked really well for a stream, and I've ran this on stream and podcast, and I think it actually works better for stream, because podcast you edit a lot. So if we run for 2.5 hours, it might end up being like a 2 hour or an hour and 45 minutes. So it's not real time. Stream, we ran Murder on Eberron Express. Yeah. And on the screen, I had a real-time clock ticking down the 2 hours. And it's a murder mystery. One of the characters is randomly rolled and is determined to be the murderer. And they know. Nobody else knows. As a DM, it's really fun because you get to just kind of sit back. And I don't have to do a whole lot when we do those murder mysteries. It's mostly them role-playing. But I think that one worked super well for a stream because of that on-screen countdown timer, that if that hit 0, the train will dock and the murderer will be lost to the crowds of the people in Sharn. I think it was going to Sharn or leaving from Sharn. But either way, I think that one worked really well for a stream. And then we did another one called The Siren's Cry, which is also a murder mystery with a time tracking element. And again, just having that on the stream, I think those worked really, really well for that.
Yeah, I must admit, I like the concept of playing around with like physical time restrictions is a fun one. Like and especially I'm trying to think of like other situations where you could apply it, because murder mystery, again, it makes sense. And I suppose you always have like the potential like Majora's Mask, like Doomsday Clock. That could be always a sort of fun one to play with. Yeah, I think again, I might have to make a note of that. I might have to put like a timer-based adventure in my future.
I'm telling you, they work super good for streams, because you can tell everybody, like, if everyone's like, "Hey, I've got a tight time window. How long do you think it's gonna take?" You can tell them, "I know for a fact it won't go over 2 hours." Yeah,
good or bad.
So yeah, you could have like a doomsday clock. Something really bad's gonna happen in exactly 2.5 hours real world time. And a lot of times, I guess a lot of adventures, I don't know, it'd be hard to make it work in a regular D&D adventure, I would think, because like combat, right, could take like a half hour.
Do you pause the timer then, or like?
And then in D&D time, that half hour could be 12 seconds. Could literally be 2 rounds, which is 12 seconds, but it took you all 45 minutes. So that would be hard to. And I think that's why it works well for murder mysteries, because they generally don't have combat in them, really. Yeah.
Interesting. Then I guess kind of like, so after sort of like dipping your toes within like publishing on the DMs Guild, do you have much plans to sort of publish anything else up there?
I have one more idea for an adventure, and I joined the RPG Writer Workshop in July, and I was working on this one, and after like 10, 11 days, I fell behind, and that one ended up going by the wayside.
Yeah.
That writer workshop helped me immensely for Tournament of Tokens also, though, but it wasn't the one I was focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get that adventure published. I think it's a really fun idea, but it's a lot of work. It really is a ton of work. So it would be something that, if for some reason I ended up, thinking that I would be able to make the time commitment, maybe if I could like even discipline myself to be like half hour a week, an hour a week, work on it. Because I would love to. I love having this adventurer up there, mostly because I haven't had to buy a one shot with real money since it came out, which is really cool. I told everybody I will never withdraw that money from DMsGuild. It will always stay there, and it will be my credit because I've got. I actually looked at my notifications, my purchases, and like a month ago, I had it was like 345 purchases on DMsGuild, which really adds up. So it's nice having that.
There is a funny adage on like the DMs Guild community that it is just the same, same 100 people passing around the same $10.
Probably very true.
Yeah, which I suppose at the end of the day, the DMs Guild and Drive Through, they get their 50% regardless. But
so yeah, it's the 100 authors passing around the same $100, but really $50
with diminishing returns.
It just keeps going down until nobody has any.
Well, I don't know if that's good or like. I don't know if I should feel sad about that or not.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, even if I have, if I end up never making $1 from it, I still have gotten so many hours of entertainment from one shots, and I had bought from that one shot I made. Unfortunately, I did put in money for like cover art and stuff, so like I think in the end it's like a net loss. But it is cool when I go to checkout and it says, "Do you want to use this credit?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do."
Yeah, please. No. Again, it's no. I must admit, it's always been really like heartwarming to hear that the RPG Writer Workshop is a really, really good way of getting like people who are just kind of curious about writing to kind of get their foot in the door. And it sounds like the whole team, like especially like Ashley Warren guiding things, that the system they've put in play is just really efficient at helping people. And again, the influx of one shots we got are going to happen every season, I think.
Which is really, really cool. And it's cool. Like you said, it's a bunch of new authors that you've never seen work from. And then all of a sudden there's, 100 on one day, August 1st, it's just like, bam, 100 new authors, 100 new adventures you can go in, and you can maybe find a new favorite author that, like that, the one that, the Vital Vintage, that was an amazing adventure, super fun. And that was just, I've read, I think 3 from that workshop, and we're planning on running a lot more, at least for streams or something, because there's a lot of good content coming out of that.
No, fantastic. No, I guess like talking about the community as a whole, then, as we're going to like run it down, like, is there anyone in the sort of the DMs Guild community that like you want to like call attention to, or like always like stands out? Obviously, I imagine there's a lot of people, but
it's pretty wild how great of a community it is. It really is. It seems like everybody kind of knows each other too, and it's they're very, very welcoming to new authors. I've seen people that will post a tweet like, "Hey, I published my first DMsGuild adventure," and there are just every DMsGuild author I follow, which I try to follow all of them. So if I'm not following you and you're listening or watching this, let me know, because I really do try to follow every single DMsGuild author so that I stay up to date. But they really do. They'll flood this person's first adventure with retweets. And I know that there's a lot So to call people out, there's so many. I know I've worked with Jesse Stevens a lot. He's always great. He's always responds super quick to my tweet. If I'm have a question about an adventure, he's always really quick to respond. Same with Steve Pankotai. I had a question about the map in Mind Your Head. Yeah. He got back to me within like 10 minutes, which is really good because I was running it in like 30 minutes. I was like, hey, I've got a question about this map where if this thing happens, I'm not very sure.
It's not too urgent, but it's kind of very urgent.
And as soon as I click send, I saw exactly what I was looking for, and I felt really bad. But we also there's a lot of people that I wasn't sure when we're trying to start this new at least bi-weekly series where we have authors come in and run their own adventure on our Twitch stream. And Steve Pankotai was kind of the guinea pig for that when he ran the Scooby-Doo one, and it worked very well. But when it started, I put out a tweet and asked people if there was any interest in that. And I thought maybe I'd get like one person because I thought it was going to be a one-time thing. And I got like 15 people that are like, oh, I would love to run my adventure for you all. And then I was like, okay, now I think I need to make this into like an actual series. So it's to just throw out like a handful of names is really hard. You mentioned Ashley Warren. Ashley Warren is super. I don't know how she stays up because I'm sure she's, she has really like just taken off in the last, I guess like 2 years I've been on DMsGuild, whatever. And I know that she is very busy now with a lot of different projects, but like, I'll have a question. I had a question for her. I was asking when the next Executioner's Daughter adventure was coming out. It was my very first ever solo adventure I ever ran. Loved it. Was really excited for part 2. And I was just like curious because, I was wondering when it was going to come out. She responded in like 10 minutes and told me she outlined all the plans and stuff for it. I was like, I don't know. Everybody I've ever interacted with on DMsGuild. I want to just every author I've ever ran. I generally will ask, I'm like, hey, are you fine with if I can find them? Some authors I can't find on any social media. Yeah. I'm like, I hope they don't care if I run their adventure. But every time I've ever reached out to an author, they're always like, yeah, I would love for you to run that. They're so enthusiastic about their work. They're like, let me know if you have any questions. It's just really a good community overall.
I was going to say, I mean, it's very flattering. It's, the idea of like, you put your adventure out there because you want people to play it. And, streams like yours and stuff like that, which I think I can't think of any streams like it that, really go out of their way to sort of, bring authors' content, like DMsGuild authors' content in front of like an audience.
There is a new one, newish one called Crit Test Academy.
Oh no! Rivalry.
There's enough one-shots to go around. Yeah. No, they were based in, I think Germany. I think somewhere in Europe. I can say that. And they're just now recently starting out, and it's very good. So that's another one that you should check out because they do the same thing. They run DMsGuild one-shots and stuff. So.
It's the DMsGuild community can only benefit from all of these podcasts kind of popping up. It's like
exactly. That's why you said competition. There's so many adventures. Yeah. We need people to run all of them, and for my benefit too. Another reason we started this is before we started recording them. When I would run my first ever adventure, I would Google that adventure and I would try to find a video of it, and there was nothing anywhere. I could never find anything for any of them, and I was like, I'll do that. I'll put them out because I'm looking for them, so there must be at least one or two other people also looking for them. And that's what we get a lot of people that are just like, hey, they'll comment on like the Happy Jack Funhouse videos. They'll be like, hey, I'm about to run this weekend. Thank you so much for putting this video up there of us playing through it, and then you can see other people play through it.
Yeah, I mean it's fantastic advertisement. That's kind of what it is. No. What I'm afraid was it looking at the time, Adam. We've chatted an hour away. I don't know how we managed to do it. I guess like one last thing, obviously, because like people have kind of been hearing about your stream and everything. If kind of people want to keep up to date with like all news about you and your streams, where's some of the best places they can sort of
The number one place by far where we're most active about everything, and we hang out every day, everybody from the cast, from all of our shows, is our Discord page.
Mm-hmm.
You can get to there from bit.ly/one-shot Discord, and one is spelled out, so ONE shot Discord.
There'll be a link in the description and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yes. And then bit.ly/halfway to Discord, if that's easier for you. And then our website is majesticgoose.com. Our podcast network is called Majestic Goose. It is a joke from Halfway to Heroes that somehow got turned into an entire podcast name.
That's how it happens.
And we've got currently 5 shows on that network, I believe. Those are One-Shot Onslaught, Halfway to Heroes. Roll for Weird is a Monster of the Week podcast. Dice Talk is interview style show podcast, and then we've got Shitty Cowboys, which I hope I can cuss on here.
No, it's like that. The amount of times that I've inadvertently sworn, it's fine. This is not. It's that. I think at this point there's no children watching, so
yeah. So that one's a stream that we also release as a podcast. The stream's bi-weekly. It's actually today in like 3 hours as of us recording this, not of people listening. But that one we're having a lot of fun with. That is, you asked if I was writing for anything else, and I guess I should mention that is using Wranglers of West Hollow. Mm-hmm. It's like a cowboy themed setting and some one shots together. And Alex Klippinger and Paul Belwick, PB Publishing is what I usually see his name is. Paul B. They asked me to actually help write for West Hollow Wrangler 2. And I did agree to that. Mostly because I don't think we'll have to do layout stuff.
That's what's great about collaborations. You just write and then you send it over to the Void, and then someone else.
I am fine with that. So I did say yes to that. So yes, I will be. I do have some writing in the future.
No, exciting times. No, again, Adam, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your busy streaming schedule and everything.
Thank you so much. This was really a lot of that. I cannot believe that hour went by that quick.
Yeah, that's what I think. Again, it's 90% because I do have like a temporal manipulation machine that, just depending on the podcast, I tend to slow it down just to let the chat naturally, and then towards the end I speed it up just as just let the conversation just flow. But no. What is it? I've been Matthew Whitby. Again, you can find me at Whitby Writes, all that yada yada stuff. The very final question that I have, just because this is kind of ritualistic for my podcast. Adam, how do we end a podcast?
Bye. I love you.
I've never said I love you to my audience. That's I'm going to take that one. So yeah.
I say that. I say it. I don't know why. It's kind of my go-to thing whenever the guys are like hanging in an NPC conversation and the NPC doesn't know how to say it or how to end it. They always just say, I love you and walk away. So that's how we end a podcast.
That's, I'm going to deal with that. So yeah, no, thank you so much for listening. Goodbye. And I love you.
I love you.